We at Swiss WinTech ladies, we are very happy to have you um, as a trainer for our mixed teams certificate. And you are really a specialist, in scientific development of brain. And maybe you can present yourself with a couple of words before we start with our first question.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I'm happy to be here. New year 2021, so it's a great opportunity for us to kick off our professional development in a way that's rooted in math and science. So I'm enthused to be collaborating with you about the brain at work and the effectiveness of decoding it so that we better understand how the brain is designed to operate so we can use it most effectively within the confines of our work world.
That sounds very interesting. So, we live in the age of digital transformation, and some people would describe that as a new era. So, what are the requirements for these for leaders in this new age? Can they go on as usual, or should they do something different?
Well, again, there's a digital transformation because technology has to keep pace with the demands of the business world. So clearly, as leaders, we have to keep pace with the demands of the business world. And in my viewpoint, in the work we're doing again in the math and science perspective is everyone should be continually enhancing their toolbox, their individual leadership capabilities or competencies, so that they can be the most effective individuals possible during this transformation. As technology is growing, so are the demands that we are requiring leaders to possess.
So, some people have described that as developing a growth mindset, and certainly we will come to that later in the interview. But for leaders, so somehow they have to lead, they have to, well, lead by example or whatever, they have to showcase how it works. So, is there anything, if there would be just one thing that leaders should know, what should they do differently?
I think it's the ability to have agility. So that is a term that was originally coined by IBM, and it was used to describe the demands of computer professionals and how they had to anticipate how technology was going to change as the business world changed. And now that term has literally filtered down into the leadership's ranks. And it's that same type of capability, not just what's happening with you today, but leaders must have the ability to forecast. What does their work world look like in 3 months, 6 months, a year,
So,
3 years? That agility is very, very important.
So it might be that, it's even more than forecasts. So it might be even imagine how the market will look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. So forecasting would be short term, but really imagine what could happen, how the world could change. So is that something, this kind of imagination, how the future looks like, is that something that is expected from leaders today?
Without a doubt. And we're seeing right now, just with COVID, individuals that are more agile have been able to, again, recognize the pandemic, have appropriately pivoted, and now are making the changes that's required, not only to survive the pandemic, but to thrive. So where we see the type of skills that we've taught leaders, it's been fascinating for us to see those individuals that, again, possess this emotional resilience or this agility, versus the ones that literally have not, and the difference in terms of what their organizations are going to look like post-COVID, because there's going to be some other type of disruption in the work world. Again, whether it be technology, whether it be, obviously we have the pandemic as an example, and building this emotional resilience or this competency we see is absolutely the game changer for effectiveness in moving forward.
Yeah. So you can build when the wind is blowing, you can build walls or you can build windmills. So you have to see how you can get to the opportunity side and the upside of what is happening. And is the brain has the brain to be trained in a certain way? Is that a capability everyone can learn, or is that just a threat?
Yeah, no, I can say to you that we know more about the brain within the last decade of how it prefers to operate at work than at any point in history. So it's going to be an amazing opportunity for our participants is they are going to be educated in a very user-friendly type of manner, the most cutting edge of information as to how the brain has been observed at work. And through that knowledge, they can now better understand what control they have to adapt these opportunities, these lessons that we've learned, so as to employ them within the confines of their work world. And the benefits are so far reaching. We're seeing higher levels of engagement. We're seeing more happiness, less stress, better collaboration within mixed teams, higher levels of profitability. I mean, the residual of adapting brain-based training is so far stretching in the way that it relates to teams and organizations and businesses as a whole.
So you can become a better leader, and as a team member, you can become a more effective person, so a more effective leader or a more effective team member when you train your brain. So
Without
that's
a doubt.
in a nutshell. Yeah.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Karen, you have to have an open mind to say, I've been getting this feedback and I'm now aware that perhaps something that I'm doing, some activity that I didn't mean to have a residual like this is impeding my ability to be effective. So let's say that you're the type of leader that's not been a coach or a mentor, and you're very, very used to telling people what to do versus bringing them to awareness and letting them learn processes. Understanding that the brain has to go through an experience in order to grow now helps leaders that would normally tell reframe the engagement in a way that, again, works with the brain, works with the rewards section of the brain, versus working within that threat region of the brain, which is absolutely non-productive. If you're working within your teams within that threat region of the brain, there is very, very little good that can come out of an interaction like that. So we know a lot more about neuroplasticity, how to use it, how to do brain exercises that result in some of the things that I've mentioned earlier.
So does that mean that leaders today should empower rather than command and control?
And empower certainly is a word that's appropriate, but I almost prefer if you're looking to develop, really develop with the brain in mind. So whereas when you're engaging with another individual, the brain has an opportunity to either move it from its short-term memory to its long-term memory. And are you allowing people to grow intellectually? In other words, leaders can actually make people smarter. They can raise an individual's IQ. Certainly raise their emotional intelligence, their EQ as well. but there's also leaders that unknowingly lower individuals' IQs, teams' IQs, businesses' IQs. Again, rarely do we see they're doing it on purpose. They're just in more of an outdated way of engaging with people versus working with the brain in mind.
Okay, so yeah, I think there's a lot of research showing that communication at eyes level has a lot of advantages in empowering and respecting your um, yeah, your
Mhm.
followers. Um, Let me go one step further because let's say 10 years ago we still had quite a stable environment. And in the last 10 years, we first saw all these kinds of disruptions, and Moore's law is not applying anymore because we see a doubling of information and science every 9 months, not every 18 months. Um, so and at the same time, so we are living today in, let's say, the slowest day of the rest of our life because the the days to come will accelerate. And we have much more fuzzy situations. So nobody could predict COVID, and we're much more living in an environment which is characterized by the term VUCA. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So, how should leaders deal with this VUCA environment where you have scenarios you haven't thought about, where you have predictions that might be wrong, where you might need to use ambidextrous approaches to reality? So, this is so uncertainty finally means you don't know the scenarios and you don't know all the scenarios. Scenario analysis doesn't is one tool, but it is not the answer to everything uh, because you have uncertainty, you have ambiguity, and you have complexity. So, how can our brain adjust to that, or what is needed from leaders in order to deal with that kind of environment?
And I think the simplest way for me to say it is that I think everyone who's going to be listening to our time together, our session together today, thinks about how different their business is
Mhm.
and how it will continue to change and grow.
Yeah.
That then requires a leader who has the agility to change and grow with it, the ability to bring out the best in others. And the only way that that is achieved is not by an outdated set of principles. It is updating or working out your brain. Even though it's an organ, it acts very, very similar to a muscle. So what you and I are going to be doing is we're almost going to be these personal workout buddies for our mindset. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking people through exercises that gets them out of their worldview that has taken them years and years and years to store. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to consider, similar to a computer, rebooting it, updating it, using a more advanced software program. How that's done is it's through awareness because your participants are not going to be aware of the latest science about the brain at work. And now that I'm aware, what exercises can I go through now to start working out my brain in a way that opens up this opportunity for me to be more agile, for me to be more resilient? As trauma comes to me, as a confrontational situation comes to me, how can I control it? So it's done through awareness and then the exercises that help you build these competencies where you're controlling it and the outside environment is not controlling you. An outside person is not controlling than you. You become the master of your personal domain.
Okay, so that means we are the muscle trainers and we will also give exercises because muscle training is not done by going just to a yoga studio once a week. Uh,
Right.
you have your brain has to learn it on a permanent basis. You have to repeat it at least, I think, for 21 or 40 days, so that you can learn it as a new habit. But
Hmm.
let's also talk about cognitive dissonance because, well, cognitive dissonance, if you have little commitment, it's not very hard to change your standpoint. But when you have, well, yeah, invested a lot of commitment in what you think is right, so you have it's harder to adjust, and it's also the question how can unlearn people in order to be able to learn new stuff.
Well, first you have to, think what you're doing, whatever behavior that you have to come to the determination that perhaps it's not the most effective. There has to be a willingness on your part to be willing to consider a new concept.
Hmm.
So, I have a leader within the realms of one of the large banking organizations that I work with that loves to raise his voice. He loves to, bellow demands. That's the way in which he's engaged.
Hmm.
And he's had a lot of turnover. He's had a lot of what would be considered detrimental activities. He had the unfortunate situation where one of his direct reports now has gone to HR about, abusive behavior. And he is very confused. This is always the way that I've behaved. Why is it a problem now? Well, because
Hmm.
the world has changed. And we have every generation for the first time in history being represented within the confines of the workforce. So that might have been effective for him decades ago, but he's
Hmm.
already seen results that it's not effective anymore. And as he's learned more about why it isn't effective, and he's readily admitted that this behavior has become a problem and a detriment to his role and a detriment to his people. I mean, we've been brought in to help him save his position. So he understands it's a problem. It's hard for him because he
Hmm.
doesn't mean it that way. It's not his intent. But it doesn't matter what your intent is. If the data is supporting that, it's not effective. So you need to be willing to say, this is not effective. I want to do better.
Okay, so but at least it sounds like he is prepared to experiment because this is what it means. So you have a behavior, this the confines of this behavior gives you a lot of safety.
Mhm.
You know what happens. You can predict when you do this and that. You can predict. Now his predictions went wrong somehow. Maybe a new
Right.
generation, maybe Generation Y or Generation Z, not prepared so much
Yes.
to go down the old route. But he has to give up a little bit of stability because when he has to experiment, he doesn't know what happens. He has to find out what happens, right? So this is what the exercises that we propose are for, that people can, in a safe space, try out new behaviors before they bring it on pieced in their companies, right? Is that correct?
Without a doubt. And he's had other training, he's had other coaching, and none of it has been effective
Mm-hmm.
because it's really been taking more from this punitive, right? You have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But when you work and say to an individual, I understand that this has been effective for you in the past. I understand that this is your hard drive or your storage system. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that it's most comfortable for you to use this. But can we agree it's no longer effective? Yes, we can. Wonderful. So now let's keep you, but let's learn about how to be you, but turn on the light in others instead of taking them to the darkness. Do you want to take people to the darkness? Do you want to make them ineffective? Do you want to make them afraid? Well, no, he didn't want any of those things. And once he better understood how he was doing it, why he was doing it, in a very non-judgmental type of way, because these are just the way in which the brain was designed. The way his brain was operating was normal. It just needed a reboot. And just going through that reboot and changing his language and the way in which he communicated and when he communicated and how, listening not to defend himself, but listening to learn and listening to engage, everything has changed for him. And this is the first time they've experienced that. And this was a last ditch effort for him. He was going to have to be let go if it wasn't something he was being able to put control over.
It sounds like the new market and the new technology and also the new work environment, work 4.0 or Scrum. These are all technologies or techniques that require people that have an internal locus of control. So they don't give the blame to anybody if anything does not work. They don't they take the full responsibility for the success of the project. So these are techniques that do require an internal locus of control. um, so therefore I personally can understand, and I think it's very useful to expand this internal locus of control, as you said. So when we look into teams now, next steps, um, there are a lot of new requirements for teams. So teams should work together with a Scrum Master to create real artifacts in a certain time frame in order to be on the market quickly. And so what are the requirements for the team and the Scrum Master and the project owner in order to allow the team to be effective? Are there also requirements you see?
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, I think Scrum is a perfect example of having to update your language, having to update software in order to respond to the demands of your business environment.
Yeah.
Karen, we're asking people to do the same thing with their mind. It's the exact same thing. So you're learning that because it's more effective. All right. You're getting to a better and quicker business outcome.
Do you have an internal? Do you have an internal Scrum team then in the exercises?
Exactly. It's a very, very similar type of thing, because as a team, it starts with each individual having a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And within that locus of control, you are very much talking about what is your responsibility as a team member. Well, as a team member, I have to be aware. I have to be aware of my strengths, and I have to be aware of my opportunities for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to speak, but sometimes because I love to speak, I quiet others. And in a team, that's a problem, right? So it's being aware of where you are in the team and what your posturing is and what the positives are, but also, what perhaps the negatives of that are. And learning that is allowing you then to exhibit those locus of control, to be able to say, I'd love to chime in, but I know it takes Mary a little longer to express her thoughts, so I'm not going to. I'm going to pause. As much as I hate it, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to give Mary a chance to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hear from her, right? Those are the type of things that, again, when you're looking at that emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, that is an exercise because you're doing something that you traditionally would not. Just taking that pause is healthy because it allows you now to work on connections that you hadn't had previously. And as you continue to put those new connections together, it takes you to this amazing neurological pathway that starts to open up this beautiful rainbow of infinite possibilities.
Yeah,
right?
I think that pausing can also be useful in order to feel where the others are. So where do they? So we don't have just yeah, verbal language, we have body language and so on. Maybe just to feel yourself and the others, it might be useful. Yeah, and to intervene, then to learn to intervene in a different way, not just to hoover over it.
Without a doubt. And to observe, right? Everybody processes information at a different speed. So you could be a very quick processor, right? That's your natural style. But let's say somebody is more introverted. They like to sit in information a little longer.
Yeah.
How do you adjust or prepare for them? Those
So
are all things that, as team members, if we're truly looking to get the best out of a collaborative group, then as individuals, we've got to give everybody the opportunity to stretch their neurological muscles.
okay.
And
So how can I, so when I go to a fitness center, so normally, so I'm sitting on a gym device and I know I can do 10 rows in a minute, or yeah, I know when I'm going to a yoga studio, I know I can my bend my back to a certain extent. So this is the current status. So is there and then I can see well, step by step, when I'm doing my muscle training, when I'm doing my yoga, how much I improve. Is there a possibility as well in the training with emotional intelligence, so that we know the status quo and that we can measure the status quo and that we can measure afterwards how much did I improve in certain competencies, because I think that
without a doubt,
would be
yes.
that would be interesting for people. Yeah, how did they change? So, well, there's the internal view and the external view, of course. Maybe they will say, well, I'm much better now, but the external view probably is also relevant, maybe to show it to an employer or to show it to yeah, to make it accompany your next yeah, job training or yeah,
Hmm.
job search or whatever. So it would be important that, yeah, at the
Yes. And
beginning there will be a status quo, and after the training there will be an update on how it changed.
well, and again, let's go back to your workout analogy.
Mhm.
So I decide that I want to have buffer arms, right? So what do? I start certainly with an appropriate amount of weights, and I'm doing reps, right?
Mhm.
Well, eventually those reps become very easy, and I have to go now to a 4 pound weight. So now I'm working with the 4 pound weights. Now I go to a 6 pound weight. But again, when I'm in that 4 pound weight, oh my gosh, these reps, I can feel them, I can feel them. But when I stop feeling them, that's when I know that I have to go to a 6 pound weight. It is
Great.
very, very similar. All right. In the beginning, when you're looking to do something that is out of your comfort zone, it is painful.
Mhm.
If you are a person who doesn't pause, and now I'm saying to you, pause, it is painful. All right. Just that pause for people that are so used to being those quick problem solvers, just that art of the pause is difficult for them. But what they see over the course of days is it gets a little easier, gets a little easier, gets a little easier. And all of a sudden, they start to see, oh, this isn't a problem anymore. I can pause now. That's then they're going to start to see noticeable differences in the way they're acting and reacting. Others are going to notice. I've been in the training space for 3 decades, and what I love about the work that we do is it is so accelerated by the fact that we can share with people, you have stored this worldview and your brain is very efficiently using it. When we disrupt that apple cart, it is the brain's like, no, let's keep using what you've got. Let's not build anything new. No, look away from her, look away. But once they get started on it and they better understand you're just normal and this is the greatness that you can achieve, they are normally so enthused and excited to go in this journey. And it's working towards this marathon, right? We're going to start very, very slow, but eventually we're going to be showing up at that starting line and we're prepared to run it. And we can make it. And our times improve and we continue to be enhanced. That's what they'll see firsthand with training like this.
Okay, so there might be also people who never speak up. So we also very often have a silent majority. So what do they learn? Because
Well, the fact of the matter is we're going to be going into breakout rooms. Everybody's going to be exercising. You made a very profound statement in the beginning. We can't just go and stand in the gym and expect to have bigger arms. We've got to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that is engaging in our training is going to be doing exercises. We're going to be engaging everyone. All right. And again, for people that tend to be sitting back more and more observant, they're going to get the itinerary. They're going to know that they're going to be participating. So they're going to be mentally preparing to come up with things. But it's wonderful because we all do this in bite-sized, very manageable pieces. This isn't a New Year's resolution. It's just 1 month. We're talking about the month of January, and then we'll go on to February. But it's broken down into very manageable and bite-sized pieces. So everyone is going to be asked to participate in this experience, either doing our training or through the homework that they're doing. But I can say to you, we have all different people who attend our virtual training, and literally they're just excited to say, I was ready to go to that next weight. Okay. Or I had a problem with this next weight. I dropped it. Help me. And that's a great learning experience as well.
So let's be very frank. So when it's the new year, I might have very good, ideas of how I want to change during the year. And the first thing, and if let's say I want to lose weight, the first thing I will do, I will go on a weight watch to see how much I'm weighing, to see my weight. Is there anything comparable in your training, in our training? So do people understand also, so from external certification, yes, so this is, the way I'm reacting, and there is, these are the areas where I have to do some muscle training, or is it all?
Absolutely. People are going, you and I did a session earlier, and it was amazing just to see the participants on that session as we were going through the different personas say, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. Right? There's so many real life examples that are given that people are like, oh my gosh, you're describing me. I'm experiencing that. The thing about weight loss is there are a multitude of things you have to do. You have to eat right? You have to work out. You have to look at what your stress level is. You have to look at your self-care. There's a multitude of brain food, Karen, that we need to be effective at work. And we're going to get right into that. We're going to talk about what is the diet that we need to be on, so to speak, in order to have the most effective brain at work. And they're going to better understand that when you're focused on your computer screen all day and you don't even spend 15 minutes going to a YouTube video of cats playing, that's actually, if you stay focused, that's not good for your brain. Your brain should be diverted away. You should go to a cat video for 15 minutes. And it's amazing what humor does to the brain, how it lights the brain, right? But again, we might have in our perspective that we just work. The brain's not designed to operate that way. So there is a multitude of brain food that throughout these series, we're going to be sharing with people that prior to the training, they felt bad about it. And now we're like, no, that's very healthy for your brain. You've got to divert that way.
So I find it very interesting because so the mantra in business really is focus, 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 and focus even more. And I don't know whether you know the monkey business illusion, whether you know that video. And if you are focusing the entire time, you might not see the monkey, which is walking
Right.
thick
Yes.
and fat
Yes.
through the
Yes.
screen
Yes.
because you're
Exactly.
so focused. And sometimes, yeah, you even probably have to widen your perspective or uh, change your activities in order to be able to regenerate.
Without a doubt. Again, there's a lot of things that we learned because we didn't realize the neuroscience behind the brain at work. Now we
Mhm.
do know that. So again, we were taught in business, focus, focus, focus. The brain isn't designed to focus that way. It's just not. And if this is the command center, you have to own the way it was designed from caveman to today.
Yeah.
All right. The brain has not changed much. All right. From caveman to today. So
Yeah.
you need to own it in its natural splendor and work most effectively. So it's impossible to continually focus without diverting your attention and refueling your brain.
So
And we'll just
let's talk about brave man for a second. So brave man, so caveman, sorry. Caveman really has the problem. He's going out of the cave. He's going into the sun. He's coming back into the cave. He tells the people, well, it's so sunny and bright and nice outside, and nobody believes him.
Mhm,
Everybody
mhm.
want to, well, yeah, because experience is something which is hard to share. So you can learn science, you can learn methodologies, but experience is hard to share. So how can we make this a first class experience for participants?
I think it has so many attributes to it, but I think again, what I've seen now within the confines of my training is absolutely just better understanding the way the brain is designed to operate makes this a first class experience because I can't even tell you in all the training that I do, whether it's in Toronto, Canada, whether it's in the United Kingdom, it is in even the training you and I did. I can't tell you the lovely notes that I received that said, who knew? Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
Who knew?
Exactly.
Right? I had no idea. Here, these were things as a woman, I was putting all my this pressure on myself when really it was healthy. So I think again, you bringing to the forefront what very, very few people, and I will be as bold to say in the world, will have the experience to experience
Wow.
is going to put you in a world. I mean, in the United States of America, there is less than 10 brain based organizations. In Toronto, Canada, there's one. It's a major metropolitan city. So I think it is a world class experience that you're bringing literally just based on the content that we're going to be covering. That in itself, even if you didn't apply it, which would be heartbreaking for me, but even if you didn't apply it, I mean, I loved Karen. I can't tell you how many people got back to me and said, I have one individual who keeps on telling me about her rainbow building and how she keeps on building this rainbow that we talked about, one
Mhm.
little stripe at a time, right? And that was just one session that was just informational. And we threw out a bunch of concepts, but it's amazing giving the knowledge how many people will
Mhm.
take it. But there's just a lot of false information about work and especially the brain at work. And we hope we can debunk those myths.
Okay, so we can we also do a lot of learning and new programming, and well, based on awareness, yeah, if you are aware, you have to take action, and there will be space for experiment. So people will be able in our trainings to experiment with this
Yeah,
new awareness, to experiment with this new knowledge, and they will get the coaching they need in order, well, even if you do an experiment, maybe uh, the first the first time you're still a little bit unsure, and we will provide the security and the safety and the safe space that they can experiment and get really experts on emotional intelligence. And let me say this, those who want can also take the measurement, because there's a tool um,
it's amazing.
which you, uh, I understand, have co-developed, and which measures emotional intelligence. And it's not a question of, oh, how emotional intelligent am I, but it is in which areas, so which of my emotional intelligence tools do I have developed in a way that I can really act and react in a very differentiated way, and where are well, the areas or the tools which I have not developed so much. And so people who want to take that tool, they have the possibility for a very fair price to take the tool, and then they can see afterwards. So they do have something like a map, yeah, a map. Uh, where are there areas where they're really great? Where are the areas where they can improve?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. It's a great foundational piece of knowledge. And I mean, the assessment is a personalized user guide for you,
Mhm.
Inc.
Yeah.
It is so powerful, from communication tips to just a variety of different tools. It's not something to be viewed and put away. It is something to embrace and continually use. And it's amazing, again, because IQ, again, we measure. EQ is, again, just a different form of intellect. And it's amazing, as you continue to take even the assessment, you can see a year from when you started in emotional intelligence, how your scores have increased.
Yeah, so
So,
this is like going to the gym, and at the beginning, you are at a certain state, you have a status quo, and there are things you can bend your back to a certain extent, and so this will be measured by this tool, and afterwards you will
yeah.
see at the end how much more you can bend your back, how much you have improved in certain areas, and that is very nice because yeah, you, it's your personal information. You are not required to share it with anybody, because it's personalized and it's for you only and for your own growth. Of course, if you like to share, you can, but I just want to emphasize, it's not a better or worse, it's just different. How are you different from others? And that increases your awareness level and allows you to have your personal training booked somehow in order to improve.
hmm hmm Yeah, without a doubt. Again, this isn't about you comparing yourself to a higher being, or,
No.
this is about you looking and saying, oh, wait a minute, I've gotten feedback in this area, and I see that my report is picked up on it as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have now that paper accompaniment to be able to consistently refer back to,
Yeah.
and to hold yourself accountable. But this isn't trying to be at 100%. And women tend to gravitate towards that. What's my score?
Mm-hmm.
No, you look at this and say, as I better understand who I am as a person, here's an opportunity for me to grow, because I want to bring out the best in others.
Exactly.
Okay,
Best in
whatever
me.
your goal is,
Yeah, the
you know,
best in
or
me and others. Yeah,
whatever. It might just be the
yeah.
best in you and not others.
Hmm.
Maybe you're a sole contributor. Maybe you're, in mixed teams rarely. I mean, again, it's just a very, very individual test. But I think the major thing is being able to be get this general sense of well-being. What I could say to you is, In emotional intelligence, the people that were in our training pre-COVID, the way in which they have made it through COVID has been such a testament to the training we do. And yet the people that had not gone through emotional intelligence, what we're seeing, it's just now companies are calling and saying, boy, we're doing horrible. We're fighting, we're blaming, we're doing all these natural defense mechanisms. And so now we're being reactive, whereas the people that were in our training before, it was a great foundation for COVID.
So they were proactive.
They really learned the competencies to be able to say, hey, you know what? This is my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I can either get stressed out and run, or I could say, okay, I completed this smaller marathon. Looks like I have to go to the Olympics now. It's a big jump, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
I'm going to do it step by step by step. So they were just so much more mentally prepared.
Yeah. Life is a journey.
You got it.
Yeah. So let's have a look, as we are a female-based organization mainly, and as we are creating an ecosystem in a very male-dominated area. There's a lot of science out there, and also studies by practitioners like the Big Four, audit companies, who say that mixed teams perform much better than teams which are very dominated by one factor. And so the question for us is, in the blockchain industry, we have very few females, and the ones which are active in the industry, we talked with them, we had interviews with them, and what they said is, we would like to see, we're not absolutely focused on getting a leadership role. We just want to have more co-creation mode, and we would like to see mixed teams. So, and this is where our training will focus on. So, can you maybe help a little bit in shedding some light in how we can motivate women to go to the field, how we can motivate employers to hire more women in the field? Because what we often hear is, well, there are men around who are able to imagine the future. So this is one of the capabilities you were mentioning in the beginning. So how can we help women to be more internal locus of control, to be more resilient, to be more yeah dependent on going into a male field, and how can we help men to make it not so difficult for them?
I think, again, Karen, it's going to consistently, you're going to hear me say, I know as we're getting into our closing few questions, that, it all comes back to the science. And I think women will better understand that if they don't see a lot of women in that field, the brain on a subconscious level will push back and say, that's not an industry.
That's not for me. Yeah.
For you. The brain is always looking for individuals in its in-group, right? Like me, right? So again, better understanding that through emotional resilience, women will see they're going to gain confidence through this knowledge. They're going to better understand, again, how they were designed to operate. And men will understand it also. Men will understand that their reasoning for women not going into the field is because of these science-based reasons, which will open up their mind to giving more opportunities, maybe seeking out women for internships in a way that they hadn't considered in the past. This is going to be about, again, brainstorming. Everything you and I do together is brainstorming, challenging the status quo to consider different ways to do things. Again, stretching those muscles, in ways they haven't been stressed before.
So why do you think should a mixed team certificate, because this is what people are getting, will be attractive for uh, company members, be it male or female?
I think, again, the outcome of where they're going to be on the other side of this training versus where they came in, and having a certification, a testimonial that you completed this, right? Here's that goal, similar to your weight loss example. Here's that example of I had the persistence, which is an emotional intelligence trait,
Mhm.
to take this training, to go into a type of methodology where really honestly I didn't have a lot of familiarity with, right? And then having the certification of this, I mean, I can say that puts them in an innovative space. And
Absolutely.
how lucky to have an innovator like you that's offering this innovation. And that cannot be diminished enough. Anybody could just go and do a Google search, and they're going to see how unusual this opportunity is that you're offering.